request Madam Jayanti to give the welcome address. Madam Jayanti.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome everyone on this virtual platform. We would like to extend a special welcome for our speaker, Mr. Palani, who will be speaking on laws of wills. We are excited to have you all here to participate in this very special meeting organized by Madras Presidency Lawyers Forum. We could not have pulled off this 20th virtual meeting without hard work and dedication of our MPLF team, who have worked tirelessly for all our needs. I hope that today's meet inspires ideas and discussion that can bring about constructive and transforming changes in our fields. Thank you.
Ram Mayappan to introduce our guest speaker today. Over to Ram Mayappan.
A very good evening to everyone. I've known Palani Kumar ji now for about 6 years, and he's had a long family connection with us for several years. I think he and my father have known each other for about 20 odd years. There is a lot that I would like to say about him, but I think he prefers people say very little about him and the extent of social work that he does. One thing that I would like to point out is some of the work and thoughts that came through this pandemic times as well. The initial thought that he immediately after COVID and lockdown was announced was about how some lawyers would be struggling and how we will have to reach out to some of those lawyers who do not or who may not be able to make ends meet was his first thought. So he's one such good-hearted person, and he continues to work with several societies and agencies across the country to betterment of the nation on the whole. And as a profession and a professional, he does not look at money as the only motto to being a professional, and his sincerity and knowledge speaks for itself. And I think I will stop there, and you will be able to learn more from him during the session than what we have done in some of our past sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ram Mayappan.
Good evening, all. I hope my voice is very audible. Yes. I would be very thankful to Mr. Ravi Meenakshandaram sir and Siva Prakash and my friend brother Ram and Sister Jayanti Shah, who is administering this program well. At the outset, I congratulate every member of this forum to conduct such a very good, consistent program every week. I think twice every week. I congratulate you, everybody. Before I am getting into the law of wills, I was requested to deliver a lecture on some topic. I preferred law of wills. I am coming from a very humble background. You are all presidency lawyers who are all sitting in metropolitan town and practicing at High Court. But I am coming from a practicing a trial court, that is Tiruchirappalli. So you don't take a pen, book, notebook and everything with you. Please kindly hear me as if it is a legal chatting. I hope you will enjoy this evening with me. Definitely, I hope so. Law of wills, it is very unknown to Indian society, in fact.
Before that, we have got members from all courts in Tamil Nadu and other states also. So there is nothing special that only Madras Court are members. All are there, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. So as far as the law of wills, when there is a will, there is a way. That is a common proverb. In an advocate's dictionary, where there is a will, there will be a suit. it is an avenue for revenue for advocates are concerned. So whenever there is a will, there will be a suit. Whether ambiguity in it, that will give a way to harvest something in our court. As far as the will is concerned, will has it is unknown to Indian society. In fact, that is even to we can say it is unknown to Hindu society in earlier days. Now we have come to the modern days. That is now we have stood in modern civilization. So now we have seen a very great change in our lifestyle also, in the change in social atmosphere. Before 1800, Indian society had no concept of will, because the properties were not owned by individuals. That is the reason. The basic unit of the very basic unit of a country or the society is family, not individual. Not individual. Like our country, our society is the patent not only law of wills, law of patent right, the intellectual property laws are also unknown to Indian law and Indian culture and Indian civilization. Even you take it patent right, copyright. Kambar has got no copyright. Nayanmar got no patent right. Thiruvalluvar not got a copyright. So anything, if anything is invented, that will be dedicated to the society's welfare. That will not be the person. It will not. The person will not. Individual will not enjoy ownership. So this is what it is, a duty-based centric society. It is not a right-centric society. Once in late in the 19th century, after 1850s, industrial growth come into play. Then the invaders have in the local government, like British government, gave some opportunities, clerical opportunities, and these type of employment have grown up. So these employment opportunities, industrial growth led to individual property ownership. So once individual property ownership came into a role, so automatically individuals want to save the property or give that property. They don't want to keep for that in family. That's how in the year of 1870, for the first time, Hindu Wills Act come into existence. Only in the year of 1870, Hindu's wills came into existence. So the Hindu Wills Act in 1870, then in the year of 1920 or 1915, Gains of Landing Act came into existence, and subsequently in 1925, Indian Succession Act also came into existence, came into force. Now, so far, as far as in 1937, Indian Shariat Act came into existence. So in 1870, Hindu Will, 1925, then Indian Succession Act. In 1937, Shariat Act came into existence, came into force. In 1925, the British government passed Indian Succession Act. The Christians, by which the Christians, Parsi and Jew, those religions come out of India, came from, not from India. It is not an indigenous religions. They came out of India. These religions were put it in one box, and the Indian Succession Act was introduced for those religions. And as far as Hindu and Buddhism and Jains, this Hindu Validation Bill, the Hindu Bill Act 1870 was in force. In 1937, British, they are invaded keep the Muslims away from Hindu society. Until then, you should bear in mind, Indian Muslims also did follow only the Hindu laws until then. So in 1937, Indian Shariat Act came into force. So in 1925 for Christians, and after the independence in 1956, as no, Hindu Succession Act came into existence. So under Hindu Succession Act 1956, Section 30 makes a way to follow a 1920 concern. For the non-succession, hello?
Audio little disturbance.
Okay.
Little disturbance. You have to keep your mic little closer.
Okay. So, as far as the Hindu Succession Act, in 1956 it was passed, but Section 1 to 29 deals with the non-testamentary succession. Section 30 simply outsourcing for the purpose of adopting will from Indian Succession Act 1925. So in 1925, Indian Succession Act deals with the complete testamentary succession as far as the Hindus, Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, Jain, and Christians, Jew, and also Parsis. So Indian Succession Act is the main source for understanding the concept of will as on date. For the Muslims, I am coming first to the exception. For the, as far as the Muslims, they call it as wasiyat. So the Muslims are entitled to execute a will. It is their right to execute a will is restricted to 1/3. They cannot execute a will beyond their 1/3 of the property. That too, they can detect the debt if it is anything with the person have, and funeral expenses. These things to be deducted, and remaining out of the remaining property, they can execute a will, that too for a 1/3 share. The another condition is if the 1/3 even for executing that 1/3 share, all the legal heirs of that person have to give consent. So, though it is said that such a restriction has been made with a view to protect all the legal heirs at par, there is a contradiction. The Muslim can execute a hiba, that is settlement deed, to the extent to entire extent of his property. When the Islam restricts a person from executing 1/3, not more than 1/3 for a will, it allows complete disposal of his properties during his lifetime by way of hiba, that is gift settlement. So this is the contradiction there. We don't want to spend much time on it. Even now, my friends may have a notice. As on it, throughout India, a common civil code is in force in one union territory. Are you not hearing?
Yes.
You are hearing? Sir, audible, sir? Yes. As a matter of information, I would say, in Goa, in 19 1761, Goa got independence from Portuguese. Portuguese had a common civil code in Goa. That Portuguese common civil code is being followed till date. Hence, the only state which is having common civil code is Goa till date. Even in Goa today, Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Parsis, irrespective of their religion, they are following a common civil code. It consists of 2,000 and odd articles in that common civil code. If anybody having interest can go through the website also, it is available in the website in PDF format itself. So in Goa, it is entirely different. Common civil code is available in our India. In 1981, central government had a move to put Goa also in the mainstream of India. Interestingly, except Shariat board, all the local Muslim organizations protested against introducing personal law in Goa. This is an interesting fact that happened in 1981. So, barring Goa, through entire India, we are following Shariat Act for Muslims, Indian Succession Act for Christians and Parsi Jews, and for Hindus, Buddhists and Jains, Hindu Succession Act, as far as non-testamentary succession. As far as the testamentary succession, Section 30 gives a way in Hindu law. Section 30 gives us, Hindu Succession Act gives a way to follow Indian Succession Act for testamentary succession. Now I am coming to testament, that is law of wills. I am going to discuss much on Indian Succession Act from Section 57. Even from 57, Section 57, all the testaments are being dealt with in Indian Succession Act. In 1957, Section 57, it introduces a Schedule 3. Before understanding the entire succession law of wills, we should have a complete idea about Schedule 3. Because Schedule 3 is restricting so many sections from appearing to Hindu wills. There are so many restrictions laid down in Section 57 that has been contemplated under Schedule 3. If there is no such section is not mentioned in Schedule 3, that section is not applicable to Hindus, Jains, and Sikhs and Buddhists. So, if the section is finding place in Schedule 3, then it is applicable to Hindus. If it is not there, it is not applicable to Hindus. For an example, as you know, there are two kinds of wills: privileged wills, non-privileged wills, unprivileged wills. The privileged wills are applicable only to Christians, Parsis and Jews, not to Hindus. So many of us may be under the impression that privileged wills are applicable to Hindus also. That is not fact, because that section 65, the privileges law of the privileged wills are doesn't find place in Schedule 3. So unprivileged wills is not for it is not applicable for Hindus, Buddhists, Jains. So we are concerned. So we can restrict our discussion mainly on unprivileged wills. So what are unprivileged wills? How it can be executed? We can go to Section 63, and 59 says about who can execute the will. Who can execute the will means a sound mind person who is of a sound mind can execute. Major can execute. Major can execute means here also I want to make a thing is, as far as Goa common civil code, 14 years boy can, 14 years, at the years of 14 years, you can execute a will. For the rest of the country, it is 18 years. So, a minor cannot execute a will. An unsound mind person cannot execute a will. This is what the two exemptions has been given in Indian Succession Act. Even the unsound mind people also, there are many categories. If a person is continuously unsound mind, he cannot execute. But sometimes there are so many kinds of unsoundness. Some may have some insanity during summer period. They can execute very well during winter period. So the permanent, if there is no permanent insanity, you can execute a will during you are in with sound mind. That is why it is saying only with sound mind. That's all. Insanity has not been prohibited. Insanity has not been prohibited. Only unsound mind. That is also, it is restricted to a period when a person is not of sound mind. If a person is having liquor, he is under the influence of liquor. Afterwards, if he is not after coming out of the influence by the liquor, he can execute a will. So these persons can execute a will. So section 63, the 63 of Indian Succession Act says discussing about execution of will. The wills are coming under section 63 mandates that a will is to be attested by two witnesses. The documents which are to be attested has been categorized in even Transfer of Property Act, mortgage, settlement deed. They are all mandatorily to be executed, attested. Likewise, Indian Succession Act mandates the attestation for a due execution of will. So attestation is mandatory. How many persons is to attest? 2 persons are expected to attest the will. Okay. Whether those 2 persons should attest the will at the same time, it is not necessary. They can attest at different times. If I am executing a will inside my office, in my chamber, I am executing a will, and I am going outside. My junior is there, and I am calling one of my junior, and I am saying that this is a pandemic period, so I want to I don't want to take a risk, so I want to execute a will, man. So I have executed a will. This is my signature. I have executed myself drafted. So you put a signature means if he is signing, if he is attesting, if he is subscribing his signature, that is a valid attestation. He need not to see my signature. I am putting my signature. So I can instruct him. I can tell him that this is my signature. Okay. Now he has gone out. He left of my office. Now another client is coming inside. So he is a client having many ideas about me. He is familiar to me, my family. So he is my well-wisher. So now I am asking him, sir, I have executed a will. I have signed. My junior has attested. So now you please put your attestation again. If that is necessary, if he puts his signature, that is also a valid attestation. So the attestation need not be at both the attestors need not to sign the will at the same time. But but I am sitting inside, I am preparing a will, and I am giving it to my junior. I am saying it him that there is my client is waiting outside. You go and get a signature in the place of attestation. He is going and collect his signature. Absolutely, this is not a proper attestation. Then, what does it mean? The attestor, the executor who is executing the will, he should be present at the time of both the attestations. But the attestors need not to be present at the same time, and they need not to attest the will at the same time. So this is what contemplated in section 63 of Wills Act, the Indian Succession Act. It is common for everybody. Now, on 63, section 63 Succession Act says this. Now, I am coming to section 68 thereunder of Indian Evidence Act. Now, the Indian Evidence Act section 68 is 68 deals about all the documents, not only wills, not only a will, all the documents which are all necessarily to be attested under the statute. So the mortgage, lease, will, and settlement deed, not lease, settlement deed, all are coming under section 68. It deals about 68 proof of execution of document required by law to be attested. So there are two types of documents. The documents required by law to be attested need not to be attested. The documents are coming under these two heads. In section 68 deals with the documents required by law to be attested. What are all the documents have been mandated to be attested? It says if a document is required by law to be attested, it shall not be used as evidence. Underline it. It shall not be used as evidence until one attesting witness at least has been called for the purpose of proving its execution. So, law mandates, it is the duty cast on the court to see that the document is proved beyond doubt by examining at least one witness, at least one attestor, if the document is falls under the category of the document required by law to be attested. So, in this case, now, if a document, if a gift deed or if a mortgage is admitted, if the admission, it is the execution is admitted. So, in case of the admitted documents, that attestors need not to be examined, but even if it is admitted, even the execution is admitted, in a case of will, at least one attestor is to be examined. So there is no exemption at all. The second portion, the proviso is there, provided that it shall not be necessary to call an attesting witness in proof of execution of any document. It says that there is no necessity for examining the attestor unless its execution by the person by whom it purports to have been executed is specifically denied. There must be a specific denial on the part of the defendant that mortgage was not executed by me, gift was not executed by me, will was not executed by the testator. So if there is a specific denial, the attestor is to be examined. But in 68, there is a small word within two commas, not being a will. Not being a will. In proviso clause, now I am repeating, provided that it shall not be necessary to call a attesting witness in proof of execution of any document, then not being a will. So, you need not to examine a witness if the execution of document is admitted. This exemption is not applicable to will. So, what is understood, even there is no denial on the part of the defense side, we should examine the attesting witness in case of a will. So, if it is not examined, we cannot say that no, there is no specific denial on the part of the defendant. So, I have not examined any of the witnesses. That cannot be a case. So you will fail in the fail in your contest. So it is law mandates to examine at least one witness. But there is one exemption. One citation is there, 1994 AAR 1994 Andhra Pradesh Division Bench Judgment 284. I am repeating, AAR 1994 Andhra Pradesh Judgment 284 Division Bench. Division, in that case, plaintiff and defendant, both the persons are relying upon will. But there is a quarrel between the properties. The properties, number and survey number, extent, measurement, there is a quarrel between plaintiff and defendant. But both are admitting the will. So in that case, the High Court, Andhra Pradesh High Court, has given a very beautiful interpretation that the section 68 has been interpreted that at least for the purpose of, it shall not be used as evidence. It shall not be used as evidence until one attesting witness is examined. But in this case, in a case where the will is not used as an evidence, no necessity for examining a will. This is the only exemption available for to my knowledge. That is why I am telling you. Your friends may make use of that judgment if anybody wants it. Okay. Now I am switching over to as far as 68. 68 it deals with the another thing is attestation by two witnesses with animus. I wanted to cover that also, that area also. What is meant by attestation? I told that the persons, there must be a how it should be done. I have demonstrated for some extent. Now, the attestor should have the animus. That is also very important ingredient. So many people will not cover it. If a attestor is doing an attestation, he should know that I am attesting this document. This is a will executed by so and so person. He should have an animus. He should not, I am standing in a registration office, my friend is calling me to put an attestation in a will. I am going and simply putting the signature for his friendship, for his familiarity with me, for my relationship. That means if he is come to the box and saying that they called me and put my signature, this is my signature, no doubt, no undue influence, no fraud, nothing. They called me, I put my signature, this is my signature. That person make a execution, that I know. Everything may be right, but I should know the animus that I have subscribed my signature as an attestor in a will. So that animus is very much important for a valid attestation. So now 68 deals with when the attestors are available. Section 69, now suppose attestor is no more now. Both the attestors are dead. What can we do? Now it is better to have some death certificate and produce it before the court. Or there is a very, as a trial court advocate, what we will do, we would do in court, we will simply pay better to those attestors as if they are alive. So these people from the court, they will go and they will find the attestor's address and they will find that the particular person is dead. They will make an endorsement on affidavit that so and so witness is no more, he is dead. So that would be the proper and very safe method to bring the factum of death to the knowledge of the court. So we can pay better to the court simply without saying anything to the court, whether he is alive or not alive. He can pay better for both. They are not alive. What can we do? Now the executant is dead, both the attestors dead. 69 what says, the persons who are well conversant with the signatures of the attestor. I have examined in a case, both the attestors are dead. Her son, even grandson came to the court and he witnessed that this is my grandfather's signature. He was a merchant I was doing business with him. I'm used to assist him in looking after the accounts shop. So I am very well concerned, very familiar with the signature of my grandfather, because in that case, Attastar died. Attastar's son also died. So I have chosen to examine the grandson of the Attastar. So in that case, I got the case in my favor. It was declared that will was duly proved. So that not only that, we should prove, we should examine a person who is very familiar with the executant also. So if to that extent, need not to execute, because the Attastar's relatives or grandsons may not know the contents of the document or the execution of the document. But at least section 69 is very important. At least the persons who are very familiar to the signatures should be brought to the court, and they should identify the handwriting that it is of their father, grandfather, like that. They are famous. So this is what 69 say. Now I am going to section 90 because the time is very short. Section 90, I am going to switching out to 90. 90 is very interesting. That is not it is yet another section 6 of Hindu Succession Act. It is also pendulum is going here and there. It has not yet settled so far, because section 90 says if a document is produced before the court after its execution, after 30 years of its execution, the execution, signatures, attestations are to be presumed as of those attestors and executant. This is what law says. So it is law mandates to presume the court that it is a genuine document. Whether this section would apply to will or not. At the earliest point of view, AAR 1947 Privy Council, page 15, and it was followed by our Honorable Supreme Court in 1968. It is available in 1968 AAR Supreme Court, SC, page 947, I think, 947. It has been followed. The Privy Council judgment has been followed. It is a full bench judgment. Sikri, Shah and Shettle, 3 judges in a full bench judgment in 1968. Both these judgments have confirmed that section 90's privilege can be given to a will. It is applicable will to wills also. If a will is produced before the court and it is of 30 years document, that document will have this privilege. It need not be proved. It should be only disproved by the other side. In fact, no doubt it is a rebuttable presumption, but the presumption is available for the will also. But unfortunately, in the year of 2006 and 9, Supreme Courts, particularly in 2009, 3 SCC, page 687, it is a division bench judgment. Without quoting that those previous judgments, they have held that, the Supreme Court has held that, no, 90 years, section 90 will not apply to will. So it is, it comes under section 63. So section 90 will not applicable to 90. Following this judgment, unfortunately, High Court also, Madras High Court also, in 2010, 2 Law Weekly, page 637, I think it's a Rajasuriya J judgment, I think so. And yet another judgment came into, delivered by the Madras High Court, saying, taking the very same stand that section 90 will not applicable to the wills. Now, as additional information, I want to give one information about how to, even if it is so, the 30 years, even if it is 30 years. Now, recent judgment is 2018 Kerala Law Times, KLT2, page 553, in which all these judgment from Privy Council to till date Supreme Court judgment, so Apex Court judgments, everything has been discussed, and finally it has given its a judgment that Section 90 is applicable to wills also. In recently, in live law, Justice G.R. Swaminathan has written a very good article in this regard. Kindly, all my friends can go through that article that has been published in live law. G.R. Swaminathan, even you can go through the NetLab. If you put the button on in net, you can find it. So it is available. It is a very good, very wonderful article. 2018 Kerala, KLT, Kerala Law Times, class 2, part 2, 553, page number. So this is the recent judgment available. It is, even though it is from a high court, but it is a comprehensive judgment available on the day. Now, interestingly, I want to put one more judgment. How to calculate the 30 years? Whether 30 years completes on the day of filing suit, on the day of protection before the court, or on the date of death of the person, or on the date of the execution. How to be calculated? So, in 2015, AR 2015, Supreme Court, page 976, it is a full bench judgment. If any document, it is not related with the will, but any document, if the date of tendering as an evidence only can be taken into account for the purpose of calculating 30 years. Not on the date of will, not on the date of suit, not on the date of any other day, but tendering evidence, the date of tendering evidence into evidence is the date to be taken into account for the purpose of calculating 30 years. It is an additional information, that's all. So, Section 30, in this area, my personal opinion would be Section 90 may not be applicable for the case of wills, because for the reason if it is so, like if it is the intention of the legislators to give an exemption, to include in Section 90, Section 90 should have, Section 90 is applicable to all the documents in my view. If it is so, if it is to be excluded, like 68, they would have put a word that not in a case of will. It is, if you compare if we have a comprehensive comparative study of Section 68 and 90, in 68 it is very clear, not being a will. Even if it is an admitted, it is not applicable. You need not to, if a document, if an execution is admitted, you need not to inquire an attestar. That is Section 68. But the exemption has been expressly given there, not being will. If it is so, in Section 90 also, there could have been such a word in Section 90 also. So, it has not been exempted in Section 90. So, that privilege can also be extended to Section 90 also. With this area, I am leaving from Section 90. Now, I am coming to some of the little more the Indian Succession Act deals with so many. It is a very, very large area. It deals about the revocation and adoption. If a will is executed, if adoption, what adoption of legacy and specific legacy, demonstrated legacy, all these things are to be read. They are all very interesting area. I may not have so much time to deal with it. What about the specific legacy and demonstrated legacy and adoption and revocation? With that, I would conclude my today's presentation. Now, normally, will has been executed by a person, sound-minded person, properly executed, properly attested, over. Now he wants to make some revision. Nowadays, the property, he may, there may be some, he may sell away the property. If a person is having a house property. He bequeathed it to B, his son. Then he sold that property. He has not cancelled, he has not revoked, but he simply sold the property. So the property that will automatically get adamned. That is called ademption. But in the case of this kind of legacy is called a specific legacy. A house property is given. 10,000 rupee is given to you. I am giving you a gold ring after my death. You can take my watch after my death. These are all specific legacies. But if the demonstrative legacy is what is, if I am saying that my having the property, so many housing plots there, 8 housing plots to a plots there, you can sell away the property and you can take 60%, you can take 40% like that. But during my lifetime itself, I am selling those properties and I am putting all the money in my, I have converted into money. Just like that, we can take an example. If it is so, if I have told, this percentage is to be given so and so person, not specific. This property is to be given A, this property is to be given to B, not like that. I have quoted only value. Then, if it is so, it is a demonstrative legacy. So this demonstrative legacy will not be addeemed for any purpose. The specific legacies are the victims of the ademptions. So the legacies are getting, it can be, there is an by way of ademption, by way of revocation, by way of cancellation, or otherwise he can go and cancel. He can make another will. If the second will is executed, the first will be automatically it becomes invalid. So like that, a will came into end. So these are all the main areas I want to touch upon today. This is today. Recently, I examined. I have got a case. I have conducted so many cases related with wills. In a case, I one school teacher who was working with my father. He had fortunate enough to have 2 wives. After he got married the second wife, because of his sudden illness, his first wife. For her assistance, he took the second wife. He got married with the second wife, and he got a son through her. Ultimately, before his death, he executed a will and bequeathed his house property in favor of that second wife. Now, the defense was from the other side is she is not the second wife. Because of the illness to the first wife, she was accommodated as a servant. She came with a boy, a child, male child. This male child is not of my father. She didn't born through our father. So she has got already married. She came with a child, male child, 1 year male child to our house. So she came as only as a servant maid. So she is a relative. This is what admitted by the other side. Here it is admitted fact is she was a relative even before the second marriage. Now they took a stand that this will is a rank forgery, like that. All the possible defenses between sky to earth they took. But the important defense is she is not the second wife of that particular gentleman. The child is not of that particular gentleman. So this is the defense. I examined the first wife's daughter. First wife's daughter, she filed a suit against this second wife and second wife's son for a declaration. We filed a will. It is a will, registered will, attested by 2 witnesses. I examined 2 witnesses, but both the witnesses did not depose up to the up to this mark, up to the mark. So I examined that girl, the first wife's girl. Interestingly, she was examined, cross-examined. Why I am telling this? Law of wills is very in a case of will, the cross-examination is very, very, very vital. The legal aspects are not so vital. The cross-examination is very, very, very vital. Every advocate should cross-examine with very utmost care in a case of will. I examined her. My party was examined by him. The first question put forth by the other side is whether you got married, whether you have got married with some other person before getting married this school teacher. Simply she said yes. Simply she said yes. I got surprised. Even she didn't disclose it to me. For the first time she came to the box and she disclosed that she got married with some other person. Secondly, she got married with the school teacher. So this is what her admission cross-examination, that advocate got completely jubilant. He gave assurance to his client that the case is almost there in the tilt in their favor. But after the cross, sometime I crossed that first wife's daughter. She came to the box and I examined her. I asked her, who is she? She told us, after all, she is a servant maid. She came to our house with a child. Now she is telling that child is of our father, born through our father. This is not right. She is only servant maid. Okay, I told her how she got. Along with will, original sale deed was produced by others. Then I asked her how she got the sale deed. Sale deed is with them, will is with them. How she got? She told that she simply at the time of death, this servant maid unlocked my father's bureau, broke open my father's bureau and stolen all the materials with her. This is what tilted the entire case. Because in this case, what I focused is the will was in custody of the deceased person. Even according to her, the will and original sale deed was in the custody of the deceased school teacher. Even according to the first wife's daughter, she is telling that this servant maid broke open the bureau of the deceased person even on the day of death, and she stolen away all the documents, sale deed, will and everything. So the will was in proper custody till, that is the executant's custody, till his demise. So my argument was whether she is a servant maid or she got birth of a son to some other person. Everything is immaterial. In this case, the signature is signature. He is a school teacher. I had proved in that case. I had demonstrated that it is of his signature. Signature is admitted until his death. The documents were in the custody of that executant. Only at the time after the death, she has broken out that bureau of that particular gentleman. This is the case of the defendants. So I got that case in my favor simply because it was in custody of the executant. So we should be very careful on that aspect. The another thing, interestingly, the husband and wife, I came to the uniforms. To this Uniform Civil Code, I want to again. As far as the Japan, I came to Goa. An interesting fact: if a person, if there is a grounds of divorce, is if wife is or husband is living in adultery, that is the only ground for divorce. Then, if the the husband, spouse is killed, murdered, or abetted to murder the another spouse, you can't marry again. Even after undergoing full punishment, even coming out of the jail, you cannot go for second marriage. Once you have got a chance, you got married, you killed your wife, you went to jail, so you be a brahmachari for the rest of the life. This is what law says in Goa. So it is a beautiful document, friends, which is available in the website. I request all my friends to go through. All the testamentary succession is very wonderful there. So what my final submission is, all this now I want to say one more thing. These discrepancies for the Uniform Civil Code, if Uniform Civil Code is brought, all these discrepancies will come under, will be wiped out, and there will be a clear testamentary succession arrangement will be here, for which we should also make some representation to Law Commission like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was really a great evening for us, explaining with judgments and sections. And I think this topic needs 2 more session also. But you gave it beautifully, and with the example, personal suit example also you have given. And you have made everyone an interesting one. And there is one question interestingly asked by our participant, that is distinguish between probate and letter of administration. This is what the question has been raised, apart from others. That is what their query. And the other thing is unregistered will. That is also a question. These 2 are the major things which has been asked.
I am now formally the administration, letter of administration and the probate. The probate is not necessary now. In now nowadays at least from 2002, I think May 12, the probate is not mandatory now. Except in metro cities, in Chennai, it may be compulsory. Now even in Chennai, metro cities also, it is not mandatory now. Probate. As far as the probation, if any person, within legal heirs, if anybody, propounder under the will, may approach the court and file a probate OP before the court for probating it. And the court will send someone to other side, all the other legal heirs who are supposed to be the sharers if the will is not in existence. If will is not in existence, who are all would be the beneficiaries by succession? They will be called for and they will be given an opportunity of being heard, and court will probate it. As far as letters of administration, it is very confined only to, in fact, metro cities, metro towns like Chennai. It is not applicable for other cities. It is applicable for Mumbai, Chennai, Calcutta and Delhi. Is it right, sir? Is anybody available in... Hello?
Sohaib, unmute yourself.
Yes, sure, sir.
Yes,
sir. It is applicable in Mumbai, and I guess this letters of administration is applicable in the metro cities. Letter of administration and probate both.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So, tell me, sir.
Now I am coming to that unregistered will. Sir, unregistered will there is one thing. Registration of will is only an additional point. It is only an additional point. There is no, the will need not be understood. If you, I will say to my clients, I am having license for my bicycle, means how it would be? Sir, I am having cycle. I have got bicycle registration for, even I got a license for two-wheeler, okay, car, okay, lorry, okay. But law doesn't mandate to get a license for riding a bicycle. If you are getting license for bicycle, it is an additional point. That's all. One thing.
Yes.
If there is if a person executing a will and registering it. Then as a matter of revision, he is executing another will, but it has not been registered.
Okay.
Which one will prevail over? The last will, naturally, even if it is not registered, that will prevail over registered earlier will. So to this extent, why I am telling this, the registration is completely immaterial, but it is basic mandates are you should get only 2 attestors should have attested the will. That is the legal requirement.
Commitment.
Legal requirement. If you got, if it is registered, it is an additional point, like NSS NCC certificate. If you got NSS NCC certificate, if you failed in SSLC, you will not get admission for 11th or 12th or graduation.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I request Mr. Bhaskar Kesavamurthy to give his impression. You can answer. Yes, sir.
ரொம்ப எக்ஸலண்டா செஷன் இருந்துச்சு. என்னுடைய ஒரே இதுன்னா செக்ஷன் 68 எவிடன்ஸ் ஆக்டும் செக்ஷன் 90 எவிடன்ஸ் ஆக்ட் அந்த பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் செக்ஷன் 68 நாட் பீயிங் ஏ வில்லன் சொல்றாங்க இல்லையா? செக்ஷன் 90ல வந்து காமன் 30 இயர்ஸ் எல்லா டாக்குமெண்ட்டுமே வந்து
சார் முருகே பாஸ்கர் சார், let us go for impression. ஏன்னா he has already reserved his rights. அதனால
இல்ல there is another impression as a matter of opportunity. I take it as an opportunity. Another point I missed in section 90, there is a very good phrase, executed and attested. Executed and attested, there is a phrase. So executed and attested document, it is applicable for executed attested document. So will is coming under the executed attested area. So that in that area also section 90 is applicable to wills also. By mistake, by slip of the tongue, initially I told that it is not applicable, but it is in my view it is applicable. But G.R. Swaminathan in his article, Justice G.R. Swaminathan in his article, he has suggested to refer the matter to larger bench, Supreme Court larger bench, and put a full stop to all these grey.
Before going to Dr. G. Babu, I request Soham to give his impression by unmuting.
It is a pleasure to listen to you. Maybe I have this habit of keeping my video on because it keeps me engaged with the forum, nothing else. That is the reason why if I have just to move out, I just keep my video off. But really it was a great session and it was a great learning experience, because as Ravi sir rightly said that even I had tried and attempted to just talk about the testamentary provisions of Indian Succession Act in the same forum. And it is a very vast topic, but the way you took us right from the first instance, that is from 1870 to the codification in 1925, it was really very great and something which even I was not aware of, and frankly even I had not prepared that thing when I had given my presentation. So it was really a very in-depth analysis that how the law of wills work and why did the law of wills come into existence and why was it important for the codification of this law. So these are my impressions, Ravi sir. Thank you sir once again for enlightening us on this aspect. Thank you very much sir.
Mr. Dr. G. Babu. After that, I request Anita Botwani. Tomorrow she is going to give her lecture on writs, and I request Babu now.
Yes, sir. I already recorded my view regarding today's session. It was quite encouraging that based on his experience, he revealed everything within given a short span of time, because this session will definitely take more than 2 hours. In concise, he has given a very nutshell the way the things are happening in the trial court, which is really effective.
I request Geeta Tangaveriyu to unmute and then speak.
Sir, registered unregistered will pati பேசுனீங்க. Hello.
கேக்குறதுமா?
சார் அதுல வந்து unregistered ரெஜிஸ்டர்டு வில் வந்து எப்படி வேலிடு அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி இதாகும்.
வில் வந்து ரிஜிஸ்ட்ரேஷன் பண்ணணும்னு சட்டத்திலே இல்லையம்மா. நீங்க வந்து உயில் வந்து ரிஜிஸ்டர் பண்ணணும்னு எங்க இருக்கு? நீங்க சேல் வந்து நீங்க டிரான்ஸ்ஃபர் ஆஃப் ப்ராப்பர்ட்டி ஆக்ட்ல செக்ஷன் இதுல சேலோ அல்லது மார்கேஜ், லீஸ், எக்ஸ்சேஞ்ச் அண்ட் கிஃப்ட், இந்த 5 டாக்குமெண்ட்டும் ரிஜிஸ்ட்ரேஷன் பண்ணணுங்கிறது தெளிவா இருக்கும் அதுலயே. இப்ப நீங்க வந்து செக்ஷன் 63 தான் இதுல இருக்கு. செக்ஷன் 63 ஆஃப் இந்தியன் எவிடன்ஸ் சக்சஷன் ஆக்ட்ல ஒரு உயில் எப்படி எழுதப்பட வேண்டும் அப்படின்னு போட்டிருக்கும் போது தெளிவா அவங்க சொல்லி இருக்க 2 சாட்சிகள் கையெழுத்து போட்டிருக்கணும். ஏன்னா ரிஜிஸ்ட்ரேஷன் ஏன் அவசியம் இல்லைன்னு நான் உங்களுக்கு சொல்றேன். ரொம்ப சிம்பிளா யோசிச்சீங்கன்னா, லாஜிக்கலா யோசிங்க. ராத்திரி 11:30 மணிக்கு ஒருத்தருக்கு நெஞ்சு வலி வந்துருது. இஃப் எ பர்சன் இஸ் கெட்டிங் ஹார்ட் அட்டாக் இன் ஆட் அவர், அப்ப போய் அவர் ரிஜிஸ்ட்ராரை தேட முடியாது, ஸ்டாம்ப் பேப்பர் எல்லாம் தேட முடியாது. ஆகையினாலதான் உங்களுக்கு வந்து ரொம்ப சாதாரண ஒரு விஷயம் சொல்லிருக்கான், ரிஜிஸ்ட்ரேஷன் அவசியம் இல்ல, பத்திரம் பதிய வேண்டிய நோ ஸ்டாம்ப் டியூட்டி, ஸ்டாம்ப் ஆக்ட்ல வராது, ரிஜிஸ்ட்ரேஷன் ஆக்ட்ல வராது. ஒரு வெள்ளை பேப்பர் எடுத்து எழுதிட்டு பக்கத்துல இருக்க 2 பேர் சாட்சிக்கை எழுத்து போட்டால் போதும். இந்த பிரிவிலேஜ்டு வில்லுங்கிறது என்னன்னா அது கூட கிடையாது. சலுகை அளிக்கப்பட்ட இன்னொரு வில் என்னன்னா, அந்த வில் வந்து ஒரு போர்க்களத்துல இருக்கக்கூடியவர் இருக்காரு, ஒருத்தர் வந்து ஏர்ல போயிட்டு இருக்காரு, திடீர்னு பாம் ஷெல் ஆகுது, அவர் இறந்து போயிருவாரு. அப்படிங்கிறப்ப அப்போ பேப்பர் பேனா கூட தேட முடியாது. பக்கத்துல இருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு சோல்ஜர்ட்ட வந்து சொல்லிட்டாலே போதும், தட் இஸ் ஓரல் வில். அவர் வாய்மொழியா சொன்னாலே போதும், அதுதான் பிரிவிலேஜ்டு வில். ஆனால் அந்த பிரிவிலேஜ்டு வில்ங்கிறது ஹிந்துஸுக்கு எல்லாம் அப்ளை ஆகாது. இது வந்து 1920ல கிட்டத்தட்ட வார்லாம் நடந்துகிட்டு இருந்த பீரியட்ல, வேர்ல்டு வார்லாம் நடந்துகிட்டு இருந்த பீரியட்ல வந்த ஒரு ஆக்ட்னால அப்போ உள்ள இங்கிலீஷ் பீப்புள் கிறிஸ்டியன்ஸுக்கு மட்டும்தான் அது பொருந்துறது மாதிரி, கிறிஸ்டியன்ஸ், பார்சி, ஜீவ்ஸுக்கு மட்டும் அப்ளை ஆகிறது மாதிரி. நான் அதை திரும்ப ஒரு விஷயம் சொல்றேன். இந்தியன் செக்ஷன் ஆக்ட் புக் எடுங்க, அதுல 57 போங்க. 57ல கடைசியில ஷெட்யூல் 3ன்னு ஒண்ணு இருக்கும். அதுல எந்தெந்த செக்ஷன் எல்லாம் போட்டிருக்காங்களோ அது மட்டும் ஹிந்துஸ்க்கு அப்ளை ஆகும், மற்றதெல்லாம் அப்ளை ஆகாது.
Over to Shivaprakash, our word of time.
Good evening, everybody. It was very beautiful sessions, and our guest speaker, Mr. Palanikumar, Senior Advocate, has explained the law of wills in a very lucid manner. And what I would point out is, in a very short period of time, he accepted our invitation, and he was very graceful enough to do it in a very short period of time. I personally thank the special speaker of the day, Mr. Palanikumar, Senior Advocate, and also I thank all the participants, because without the participants nothing can be done. தமிழ்ல சொல்ற மாதிரி 2 கையும் அடிச்சு ஒன்னோட ஒன்னு உரசினாலதான் ஓசை கிடைக்கும். அதுல ஸ்பீக்கருக்கு எவ்வளவு பர்சன்ஸ் வராங்க, ஆடியன்ஸ் வரும்போது இட் ஸ்பீக்ஸ் அபவுட் தி குவாலிட்டி ஆஃப் தி ஸ்பீக்கர். Today the number of participants reached 71. It is a great honor to speaker of the day, Mr. Palanikumar, Senior Advocate. And one aspect is it is also happy to note that the MPLF is gaining popularity amongst the legal fraternity. Thank you all participants. Wish you all to looking forward to see you all in the next session, that is tomorrow at 4 p.m. The invitation of it will be sent to you by WhatsApp. Thank you.